I knew the moment I crossed that line, there would be no way back. I didn't plan the reply, I executed it. The text glowed on his screen while he showered. Room 512. Same as last time. I typed, "See you there," and watched the 3 dots appear, vanish, reappear, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Decision, not impulse. Evidence, not accident. Revenge, not forgiveness. And still my hands shook. I put on the black dress I reserve for negotiations, not anniversaries. I told myself it wasn't about the man at the other end. It was about the lie in my house. If he could outsource honesty, I could outsource closure. The rule was simple, one night only. No names, no history. I repeated it until it sounded like a prayer or a dare. The hotel lobby smelled like citrus and old money. I crossed the marble thinking of the years I'd spent convincing everyone, including myself, that I was satisfied. The elevator doors slid shut with a hush that felt conspiratorial. Floor 5 lit up. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked like a woman who had finally finished waiting. At 512 I paused. I wasn't afraid of being seen. I was afraid of recognizing myself. I texted "I'm here," then slid the phone into my clutch and knocked once. A beat later, the door opened and my breath caught. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew by the cadence of his laugh from office holiday parties, the way he occupied space without apologizing. I hadn't known his name then. I did now. He said it first, like an oath I could refuse. I should have left. I should have said "wrong room." Instead, I stepped in. The room held the kind of quiet that makes people honest. He didn't touch me. He waited. I realized I had misread the message. My husband hadn't been the sender. He had been the common denominator. It changed the stakes, but not my decision. I set my rules out loud. No past, no future, no promises. He nodded, gazed steady, and offered water like we were about to sign a contract. When our closeness deepened, it wasn't reckless. It was deliberate, a choreography of permission and pause. My pulse quickened at the sound of my own name, the way it softened in that room. We spoke in half-truths and full stops. I kept the ring in my clutch, a small planet with no orbit. After, we sat with the window cracked, city air threading through the curtains. He didn't ask for more. He asked if I felt less alone. I wanted to say I felt accurate. Instead, I said "one night only." He answered, understood. He walked me to the door, and I left without looking back. In the elevator, my phone vibrated. A message from my husband, flight delayed. Miss me? I stared at the screen until the doors opened. The lie had a timetable, my choice had an echo. At home, I slipped the ring back on and rehearsed my alibi in the bathroom mirror. My mouth formed words I planned to believe. I thought the night would end there. It didn't. A second message arrived from an unknown number. "You weren't the only one who crossed a line tonight." I froze. The confession I owed myself had multiplied. And somewhere in the city, a door I thought I'd closed was still ajar. I had told myself I was in control, until he proved me wrong. The unknown number belonged to him. 512, water, steady gaze. His message wasn't a threat, it was a mirror. "Check your husband's calendar," he wrote. "Tomorrow, noon." I told myself to block him. I opened the shared calendar instead. The entry read, "Client lunch, Hawthorne." We don't have a client named Hawthorne. We have a street by that name and a hotel that sits on it like a promise. I arrived early and watched from across the lobby as my husband waved at the hostess, easy as breath. He wasn't alone. The woman wore confidence like silk. She touched his sleeve and laughed low. My spine did a quiet inventory of everything I had given up to make us look effortless. He leaned in. He lied with his eyes. I filmed nothing and remembered everything. When I turned, 512 was beside me, hands in pockets, as if he'd stepped out of a more honest version of my day. "You wanted the truth," he said. "I wanted you to choose it." I hated that he understood my language. I hated that part of me was relieved. "One night only," I warned. He nodded once. "I know, but lines aren't fences. They're tests." We moved to the bar where anonymity wears a cologne of citrus and secrecy. He asked what I wanted. I said leverage. He said that required patience. We talked in careful sentences, building a scaffold out of facts. No threats, no games, just a clear view from a higher floor. He didn't ask for a second night. He asked for a second decision. My pulse quickened at the steadiness of it. Across the room, my husband slipped the check into his jacket and the woman's number into his phone. I decided to stop curating my life and start editing it. "I need proof," I said. 512 slid a card toward me. "You don't need me," he said, "but you might need a witness." The word landed with weight and mercy. I followed my husband out to the curb where he told a story about a meeting that hadn't happened. The lie fit him like a tailored suit. I looked at the ring on my hand and thought of gravity. Back home, I set the phone on the table and recorded my own confession into a voice memo I didn't send. "I crossed the line because you built a maze." That night, I slept on my side of the bed and counted the miles between us. Near midnight, a notification lit up my ceiling. Hotel security email, automated, badly formatted. It referenced an incident involving elevator cameras. My stomach tightened. 512 had warned me about the cameras. The footage existed somewhere, indifferent and time-stamped. I opened the email expecting a demand. Instead, it offered a courtesy notice. Maintenance had caused intermittent outages. Translation gaps. Between frames, live shift shape. I closed my eyes and saw static where our closeness had deepened. Relief is a treacherous feeling. It makes you underestimate the next fall. I texted 512 sentence. "Don't contact me again." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then nothing. I exhaled like it was over. In the morning, my husband made coffee and kissed my temple with the same mouth that had lied at noon. I almost asked his plans. I almost apologized to my reflection. Instead, I powered off the shared calendar. By noon, the hotel email had forwarded itself to my work address, then to my husband's. Automation, error, fate. He looked up from his phone, color draining, then flushing back. "We should talk," he said. I smiled, razor thin. "Yes," I answered. "Let's." Control, it turned out, was not a possession. It was a performance. And the second act had just begun. Micro cliffhanger. When the footage resurfaces, whose story collapses first, his or mine? The secret I carried could destroy us both, but I couldn't stop. The footage didn't appear, its absence did. An anonymous email hit our shared inbox. "Your elevator looked busy. Shame if the wrong eyes saw the right gaps." Not a demand for money, a demand for attention. My husband went still. "Someone is targeting me," he said. The pronoun tasted convenient. I let it sit between us like a glass we both refused to touch. I took the day off and met 512 at a park where privacy looks like sunlight. "If this is your version of leverage," I said, "return it." He shook his head. "Not mine," he answered, "but I can trace it." I weighed the risk. I weighed the marriage. I handed him my phone. Decision again. Trust is a door you open knowing who might walk through. He worked quietly, a surgeon with code instead of steel. The sender used the hotel Wi-Fi spoofed via cafe 2 blocks over, he said. Not your husband. Not me. The relief was brief. The danger didn't care about our categories. Then who? I asked. He looked at me like a person about to remove a splinter that had become part of the skin. Someone who wants a confession without asking for it. We traced the signal to a woman with a smile like a sealed envelope, the one from Hawthorne. She arrived at the cafe as if summoned by a plot twist. I approached first. Your message, I said. She didn't deny it. He promised me endings and gave me ellipses, she replied. You looked like you could finish a sentence. My pulse quickened, not with fury, but recognition. Different pages, same book. We made an impossible alliance on a shaking table. No threats, only terms. She would forward the emails to HR. I would forward the calendar entries to myself. We would not become friends. We would not become enemies. We were simply two women refusing to be written in the passive voice. 512 stayed back, a witness who understood boundaries. At home, I laid everything out, dates, messages, the geography of betrayal. My husband stared the map of his own choices. We can fix this, he said, reaching for the old script. I moved his hand away, gently. We can end it, I corrected. Ending is a kind of fixing. It just doesn't flatter anyone. He offered apologies that sounded like weather reports. Unavoidable and personal. I waited for the sentence that would anchor us. It didn't come, so I spoke mine. I crossed a line, I said steady. I won't cross it again, but I also won't pretend it didn't teach me who I am. His face shifted, a landscape losing light. He asked the wrong question. Who is he? I answered the right one. Who am I when I'm not waiting for you to tell me? The next morning, I left the ring on the kitchen counter like a clock that had stopped lying. I drafted a simple message to HR and a kinder one to myself. No spectacle, no scorched earth. Just a door opening because a window had pretended to be enough. As I packed, a final text arrived from 512. No footage. I made sure. I stared the words, feeling the complicity and the mercy. I typed, thank you. Then no more contact. The dots appeared, then disappeared, like a promise kept off screen. Outside, the day looked ordinary, which felt like a luxury. I stepped through it, stripped of defenses but not of dignity, certain that consequences weren't monsters under the bed. They were invoices we finally paid. At the curb, I paused, not to look back, just to breathe. The line I crossed hadn't saved my marriage. It had saved my voice. Somewhere in the city, an elevator hummed between floors, carrying people who would swear they were in control. I smiled at the honesty of the motion. Up, down, open, close, every choice a door. Mine stayed open.